How are you?
All right.
There it goes.
Yeah. So
Busy? Yeah. A lot going on.
it was like chicken nuggets tonight.
Yeah, take it. Are your boys playing busy?
Soccer.
Do you do soccer year round?
Just one. Jesse, he swims. Go tell the people waiting outside and come in now.
My biggest accomplishment of the day was completing a Native American diorama for my third grader.
Perfect. This is your diorama.
It's my diorama. I'm gonna get an A+. These projects.
Scoot over.
It's like,
I loved the diorama.
I mean,
I was doing it.
like, do kids actually do them though? As they get older, I guess. But like, I don't know. I just feel like I feel bad for the kids that actually do them because they don't look as good as the parents, right? And then it's like, there's 4 third grade teachers in our school. One of them won't do it because her argument is like parents just do them, and like, and then the kids that don't like feel bad because they're just look really good in comparison to an adult.
She knows that.
Yeah, she's been teaching for like 40 years. She's like, I just won't do it anymore. They're not learning anything. And I'm like,
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true, though. In 4th grade, I think you make a. Do they still do all the missions in California? You don't have a 4th grader yet.
Not yet. I'll let you know. But I think that sounds right. Yeah.
And then you make a model of that.
I think so.
That was fun.
Yeah.
But also the parents have to be somewhat involved.
Yeah. For that, yeah. I mean, yeah. I remember in some grade, I had to make a musical instrument.
days.
Well, has anyone ever checked our ratings to see if anyone's watching?
Barbara Epstein.
Barbas.
Yeah, for sure.
My kids were like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, you guys should come sometime."
Oh no, they can watch on TV.
I know. How did they do that? I don't even know.
On the internet.
Access and and YouTube too.
I have to tell them when we have something to discuss, because otherwise they'll be like,
My kids used to watch it all the time, and
They
then they
did?
got bored. Yeah.
I don't know how they could get bored.
"Surprise."
Did you try hitting the router? That's what I always try. Never works, but I always
Plug
try
in and
it.
take it out.
Unplug it in, hit it, drop it a couple times.
Had 90% chance of rain Friday, and none of my children have school on Friday.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Why don't they have school?
It's like a professional development day. Wait, where does
Why don't they have
your
school?
son goes to Tulita,
He
right?
goes to Rivera Hall.
Our kids only have like 3
Yeah.
Fridays of the year. They actually go to school on like only 3 of the actual Fridays. It's always a holiday for another 4-day weekend.
Yeah.
It's great. Well, Henry, their school starts. They don't have like any half days either. So they start like in September and then they end in the beginning of June. So I think they just get so much time instruction. But we were going to put him in Toledo, but it was that year COVID.
How did the location look for the other place? Is that on
For Bill Pettit?
for Bill? Yeah.
Toledo's only
I think
2
we
hours
found a
away.
better
You know,
better spot.
the
The
kindergarten.
I
So
see.
It was
and then it felt like they were
down by the amphitheater, kind of at the entrance where there's a couple oak trees that were dedicated to him or donated to him. I think.
Oh, nice.
It was such a hard
So
decision.
right by that spot seemed like a better.
We were
Get
gonna
better.
put him in first
Yeah.
grade, and it was just
Is it off the trail?
You know, it's
It was
hard
right off the trail.
to make the
That's-
decision.
yes.
To move once
Whereas
you're there.
before on the other spot was
So then
kind
I
of
was there.
obscure.
Yeah.
The tuition's not crazy. So
Well, because
it's like
parochial, yeah.
it's like
Yeah, my mom's gonna like this, seeing the little lake there. So
Okay.
we're gonna bring her there.
Yeah.
As soon as it's set up, it'll be cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like,
but it's been-
might
it's
happen
been
soon.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was shooting for that April one, thinking,
No,
you
I love
you
our
never
school.
know with these
I
things.
just,
You have to make
a
the
lot of
cement
random
slab
half days
and
and
get
holidays.
things set up.
I remember looking at the calendar.
I forgot what
The
are the
calendar
benches actually made of? Do you
symbols.
remember?
And at first
Yeah.
it looks
You went?
scary, but then you're like,
No.
oh, this actually makes a lot of sense.
They
But
are concrete, okay.
there's a lot going on.
Wooden benches.
Yeah,
Well,
there's-
and they look natural.
Yeah.
Yeah, we found
No, I
a
really
couple
like
rocks
it.
in the
I
park.
really like
Oh.
it. Like, I love our
They
principal.
were flat.
They look just like
I really
the
enjoy
photos he had, but
Like, it seems like
Yeah,
a little
nice, really
private school
flat
'cause
one.
it's so
Oh,
small.
great.
Yeah.
for Lily and
Jefferson's like
and then a
Toledo,
different
but I did not
white one
their
Tulita's
principal.
smaller.
for Bill.
Those gotta be pretty heavy. So I wonder how they move them.
Actually asked to come and like
Yeah,
see this
they
school.
pry him out of the ground and
That
then
wasn't in the system, so I missed the.
If
kindergarten
they're-
roundup and just, like,
put him on a dolly,
Yeah.
kind of dolly him over.
Oh.
Yeah, 'cause, it's pretty solid rock.
It's hard.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have that set up.
So that kind of like that whole interaction with him kind of like.
I think it was
Like, I was like, why am
Eugene,
I
he was
different?
550 ahead. Yeah, so it's probably, he's got,
Oh, okay.
there's about 2,000 votes out in the city.
Ours
Still.
is really good.
Yeah, but they, I think they're out from the advisory committee. I'm an alternate on that, so I only went to one meeting, but they had some
All
good
right,
ones.
sounds like we're ready, guys. Yeah.
Good to go already.
Welcome out to the regular meeting of the Recreation and Parks Commission. We're going to call the meeting to order and take a roll call.
Commissioner McCauley? Commissioner Rowe? Oh, sorry, I forgot he wasn't here. Commissioner Light?
Present.
Commissioner Corman Super?
Present.
Commissioner Escontrias?
Present.
Vice Chair Lang?
Present.
And Chairperson Barbarigos?
Here. And let's see.
I'm sorry to interrupt. There's no audio and it's not streamed. Give us 1 second. I'm working with.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I apologize. We'll just momentarily hold on. We'll let you know when we're ready to proceed.
Is that okay?
Is that different? No. I was wondering if it's just the mic.
She said that no one has to eat it. Did you know that? We just all stand up and say it. I've been saying the salute probably most meetings, leading the salute. The first time someone asked me, I had to look it up because we were on the Zoom meetings.
The what salute?
What? I had to look up the salute.
The actual words.
Yeah, because it's been so long since I said it.
Yeah, it takes me back to the blacktop.
I feel like every time I do it, I turn red.
Streaming on YouTube, Michelle. Is she saying she's not seeing it on her side? Maybe he was saying she's not seeing it on her. I don't know about audio, but I see it on YouTube. There's no sound at all to hear online. So got it. Try it again. Are you ready? Do we need to restart? Did she say? Should we? Okay. So, Chair, if you can just restart.
All right, sounds good. Hey, welcome everybody to the meeting of the Recreation Parks Commission, regular meeting. And we're going to call the meeting to order, the roll call.
Commissioner McCauley? Here. Commissioner Light?
Still here.
Commissioner Corman Super?
Present.
Commissioner Escontrias?
Here.
Vice Chair Lang?
Here.
Chairperson Barbarigos?
Here.
And noting the absence of Commissioner Rowe.
All right, why don't we all turn to the flag and take a salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. The next item is to approve the order of the agenda. And
I'll make a motion to approve the order of the agenda.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moved. And moving on to blue folder items, additional backup materials.
We don't have any this evening, Chair.
Okay. So moving on to F, consent calendar, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Are there any items on the consent calendar?
We actually have one item. F1 is the affidavit of posting for the agenda. Item F2 is just a notification that the February 8th meeting minutes will be on a subsequent agenda once they're received. So tonight it's just F1 is the only, actually both items are receive and file.
Okay. Do I have a motion to receive and file?
Motion to receive and file.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And the excluded consent calendar items, item G is nothing listed there.
Correct.
So item H is the public participation of non-agenda items. Do we have any online comments? No, and oh, that was no, okay. And seeing that there's nobody in the audience today, we can move on to, let's see, item I. Any items from previous agendas, and that's no.
That's
Right.
correct. Yes.
Okay. And item J. Discussion and possible action of the volunteer acknowledgement program, subcommittee's proposed volunteer and employee acknowledgement program.
So thank you, Chair. I'll just provide a brief staff report on this, and then I'll turn it over to the subcommittee if they have any additional comments to include. If you remember, the commission developed a subcommittee in December to develop a volunteer recognition program that would task the commission with acknowledging volunteers throughout the year. And so the subcommittee is made up of Commissioners Light and Escontrias, and they have been working on the proposed volunteer acknowledgement program here. I did insert myself a few times on some of the policy and procedure. So I do just want to say that staff does fully support the implementation of this program. I think it's a really great program and something that the subcommittee should really be proud of. I do want to mention that beyond it just being a volunteer acknowledgement program, the subcommittee really wanted it to also include the opportunity for city employees to be acknowledged if they have done any service to the community beyond what their typical role in the city as an employee would require them to do. So this is really a volunteer program, but also has an opportunity for employees to be recognized if it was fitting to do so. And so within the policy, I certainly won't go through the entire program outline that was included with your report, but just wanted to mention that it provides the recognition of both individuals and organizations on at least a biannual basis. So it does require someone to nominate whoever they think would be fitting for the recognition. There is an application form included with the program policy, or excuse me, the program manual. And that then would be reviewed by the subcommittee. If the subcommittee unanimously agrees that this individual or organization should be recognized, that would then be referred to the commission at a formal and open meeting. And then if the commission unanimously agrees that this individual or person should be recognized, they would then formally be recognized by the commission at a subsequent meeting. Let's see. The program also provides an opportunity for the recognition of an annual Volunteer of the Year award, as well as an Organization of the Year award. So certainly people could be eligible for the biannual recognition, but then also a larger kind of recognition from an annual basis. And then we talked about the additional employee component there. Again, the proposed volunteer program is included as an attachment to your report. So with that, I'll turn this over to the subcommittee if they have anything additional that they wanted to add. But tonight, it's really an opportunity for the subcommittee to present their work to the commission. If the commission would like to implement the program, tonight we would need to have a motion to do so, and then we would immediately roll this out for anyone to be recognized as we get the nominations in. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and again, I'll turn it over to the subcommittee if they have anything additional that they'd like to add.
Go ahead, Dan.
All I was going to say about it is I really want to thank Gil for getting this ball rolling and doing the heavy lifting on getting something out there. I think this is a really good program. I was inspired by it a little bit about what my mom had done for the city and never got really any recognition until now. She's got Alzheimer's and not going to quite recognize it, but she is going to get a plaque. And we went out and looked at that site there. And I think it is something that would have been nice to have along the way, some kind of recognition for, and she did Sharing Nature with Children. She did Earth Day every year. She did solar tours. She was just a force of nature out there. And it kind of inspired me to try to do that same kind of thing of I can't do half of what she did, but volunteer kind of things to get, contribute to causes I think are important. So I think this is a neat start, and certainly ideas that anyone has to tweak it, but I think the way it's looked at so far is that have it, people from the public, and I'm not sure how we would publicize it or get that out there. Maybe you guys have some ideas on that, would nominate people or organizations, and then biannually we would, and it can happen at any time, and doesn't have to be something that takes a lot of the commission's time, but it would be something when there's a lighter agenda, we could go through the nominations and come up with those that should get some kind of recognition.
Is that all the comments we have?
Yes.
Anybody else like to make a comment?
I have a question. So it's just looking at the award categories. So they have a volunteer of the year, individual, volunteer of the year, organizational. How is that different than the individual certificate and the organization certificate of acknowledgement?
If there's an organization that as a group, and not necessarily just as an individual, that has been, say for example, we have, I believe there's 5 or 10 women who cut roses at the Morale House every Tuesday. We have been doing it for 15 years now. Okay. As individuals, when you try to talk to them, they really are very standoffish about it. But I think we could also acknowledge them as a group of people, as there were necessarily as an organization or as a group of people. A little easier than just one individual within there. Or an organization can nominate one person or 2 people from their organization as well.
I think she was asking, were you asking, I think, the difference between the certificate and the volunteer of the year, both individual and organization, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah, because it looks like there's 5 different categories. And then the first 2, it's called a certificate of acknowledgement. And I was just wondering what the difference between the certificate of acknowledgement was versus the volunteer of the year.
Generally, I would say is that the volunteer of the year would be as you narrow down all the certificates of acknowledgements for that year. So if you have...
Okay.
Yeah, the assumption is that there'll be more than a number, because this is something that doesn't cost much, if anything at all. So we're hopeful that they'll get a lot of people that get nominated for it, and then they get that certificate. And then once a year, you go through those and decide who was the very volunteerist of them all.
To be quite honest with you, the cost is actually the cost of parchment, if that.
Yeah.
Okay, other than that, or if the commission chooses to go a step further and to participate in the President's Point of Light program, if they choose to do that, then the certificates then that come from the White House generally are about $3 with maybe a medal that's about $2. And if you choose afterwards, again, the dog park is a certifying organization that can take that on as well to be able to do that. But other than that, the cost is minuscule as to, and especially in comparison to probably the millions of dollars that are being saved every year by all the community members, both that are known and unknown, if you will.
You know, I think it's a great program as well, and the work you guys have put together. I had a question. Look, the certificates come from the commission. They're issued from the Recreation Parks Commission.
That would be an idea. How the structure of it would then be based on what the subcommittee looks for. At minimum, it's a city seal and their name and an acknowledgement, and then signed by the president of the commission. It is generally my hope that hopefully the city catches on with this, and that every commission has some sort of volunteer, kind of especially to whatever they do, and then later on maybe the city can do that based from the city council. I honestly believe this is very seriously lacking in this city of acknowledgement of people.
I read that it could be like additional recommendation could be referred to the city council.
Yes.
And so the initial certificate coming from the Rec and Parks Commission, wouldn't that still be from the city though? Wouldn't that have a city seal on it? Would that certificate be still coming from the city?
It would be.
Printed from city, just however.
Yeah, the city does have, I don't know if they have a standard certification that they do give to certain individuals if it does come from the city, but the one for this commission, we certainly on staff can be the ones to help simply print the award. We can help design it and prepare the award once the person has been selected. And so we can make sure that it's unique enough to where it's specific to the commission, so that if there is any additional acknowledgement from the city itself, there would be at least be a distinction of the certificates.
And coming from the commission,
Yes.
we're definitely focused on recreation and parks,
Yes.
and volunteerism in the parks and open space and sports. And
I'll kind of put it in this context, is that I believe it's incumbent on us to do something and to try something. I think if we wait for the city council to step up or anyone else, it's just not going to happen, because obviously it has not happened to now. I think as a commission, that our purview is parks and recreation, whether it's somebody who goes out there and rakes the ball field every day and has done it for 5 years. Okay, those are the people I think we need to acknowledge. If the city council or anyone else wishes to do something in addition to that, it's similar to like in some cities. I know in the city of Los Angeles, each individual entity may have their own volunteers of the year, volunteer of the quarter, whatever else, and then it kind of builds up like in a pyramid. To ideally, ultimate one is for the city council to do it. Okay, but in the meantime, I would say is if they choose to do it, great. I mean, it just helps out better. If not, I think we need to step up. Or rather, I would like to see that we step up and acknowledge and take the lead in this for everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have the bandwidth to take this on,
Yes.
whereas the city council probably doesn't.
Well, I think they do, but they choose not to.
Well, but this could be like the minor league award.
No.
There you
Ones
go.
that are really outstanding,
Yeah.
go to the city council, is the way I would see it. You know, because you kind of have so many groups, and you do want to recognize them. I think it's great, and, but you're going to have that 1 out of 10 that's like, okay, the city council's probably going to want
Possibly.
to acknowledge that, and that'd be fine, but,
But my view is until then,
yeah.
that we step up and do something for his acknowledgement, and we don't wait for others to define acknowledgement of people.
so I suppose we have to get the word out. People need to know that they can refer.
The subcommittee that we are on with Commissioner McCauley, I think we've done sufficient, not sufficient, but an inroads into outreach to the organizations that are serviced by Parks and Recreation initially. And I think we've developed some little bit of rapport, and I think a little understanding is that we are acknowledging them as organizations. Further outreach is not that difficult. Via either next door or as a press release, which we are authorized to do, I understand, to the Daily Breeze. And then again, we can only kind of put out as much as we can. And I think even with the organizations that we've been working with so far, that's the first start. That's where the snowball is going to get going, because there's at least 5 or 10 organizations already who I believe we can probably pull 10, 15 people who are very deserving.
Sure. It seems, I think you're right about the snowball effect, that it will be something that, each one is a really inspiring story, really.
Yes.
And that's what we're just sharing stories and acknowledging people.
Yeah, I could see it even happening like biannual, could even be pretty more frequent than that. And just here, and then you're right, you need more committees or commissions.
And then Commissioner Light also brought in the idea is that this can also be retroactive for somebody maybe who 5 years ago had done something really good. And this does not necessarily mean that we're just going to pick and choose from this day to this day. Okay. I think acknowledgement, however form it takes and in whenever it takes, is very important for that. And it's only, if anything is beyond the purview of the year, it is written in there is that it's on a case-by-case basis that we can go back and look at that and acknowledge a person or a group of people that have done service to the community.
Is there a limit to how many people can per season?
We're talking about the option of doing it more frequently, but it seemed like it could be problematic in terms of how much time it would take of the commission's time. That's what we said, every 6 months. But if there were more, we certainly could, if we have the time,
I'm not one who pushes off gratuitous type of acknowledgement of people, okay, or things. Not this. I don't believe this is one where everybody gets a trophy, okay. That again would be up to depending on the first batch that comes in, and then there may be a process within the subcommittee of how to filter out what we need to look at, and in order to be more efficient in that.
I have a question. So you mentioned maybe some of the other commissions would eventually give similar.
Yes.
Well, what do you think that they would like? I know we're talking about doing volunteers that volunteer their time for raking the field or whatever. Right. But do you imagine like Planning Commission would do volunteer awards for like?
You would have to go back to each commission to determine what they believe that is, okay? For example, the Arts Commission, that they find an artist who's been able to do stuff. Yeah. Okay, the Historical Commission is somebody who's gone out there and done a lot more research for someone, or somebody who comes in and assists them. And maybe not every commission is going to be able to do that, but I believe that the option is left there for them if they choose to do so. With this is a plug and play. You just change the name on it, and if you choose to do that, all the way up to the city council. And again, if they choose to, with their staff, to be able to review what, again, tweak it to say, okay, we will do it once these 4 commissions give us, or anybody for that matter, gives us information, and then we'll look at it ourselves. And again, if they choose not to, for whatever reason, I think we've done what we should do and what we can do and doing the right thing.
For sure. And I agree that it's good to move forward as a commission and put it out there. And I think that the city should kind of put this together for all the commissions, and that maybe in our recommendation, that we say we're going to move forward with this, but also that the city should move forward and adopt, that we're also asking the city to do that, to put it out there for every commission so that everybody submits, from their commission. Ultimately, it would seems like it's not only about rec and parks, but just everybody.
I would venture to say it is, but on the same, I think it maybe even quite honestly as being selfish is that I want to be a part of a commission that's going to make a difference. And I want to be one that's going to be able to when an idea comes up is that we work on it and we don't wait for somebody else to kind of guide us or lead us around, and because they don't want to spend 10 cents for a paper. For some people, it means a lot. We've got kids that are out there that are doing a lot of good stuff that could help them in college. Or like, for example, you said your mother, I think sometimes if somebody would have said thank you, it would have been probably gone for a longer time or for other people doing more. But when some people feel like they're just being used and kind of overlooked, and that's when volunteerism fades.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, it does. But just because it does doesn't mean we continue it.
No, I mean, this is a wonderful idea. I'm glad you brought it to the commission and thought through. So easy to do, but no one's doing it, so.
Yeah, I just was going to say, I'm not sure about the idea of like bringing to the council to say that it should be done across, but rather presenting it as this is what the Rec and Park came up with doing and think it's a good idea. And if you're interested, we'll help you.
I'm not looking to shove this down anybody's throat.
Yeah.
Including yours, for that matter. Okay. But I think that hopefully, because I've had discussions with a couple of council people and saying, well, I got a woman who works at the dog park for 22 years, and she's there every Wednesday picking up rocks, okay, and helping and doing a lot of other stuff. Nobody's ever said anything, okay? So the thing again is that I don't really want to shove it down the throat of the council or anyone else for that matter. But if somebody else wants to see it, I think that what we can do is lead, offer them a template if they choose not to. We'll continue. I believe that then we can hopefully do what we think is right and just do it and not wait for anybody else.
Seems as though we can get it off the ground, and
Yes.
if it goes well,
If
then we can.
great. If not, we'll just do what we're going to do. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just have a quick question about one of the rules. Eligible services do not include, and all of that makes sense, but the last part, and services that provide a benefit to family members. So just hypothetically, right? So let's say there's a really good rec instructor in one of the rec programs, like a, I don't know, martial arts instructor or something that's been doing it for years. And I don't know, their child happens to be one of the people that they have taught or something along those lines. Like, what do you mean? Like, it can't have benefited their family member in addition to a bunch of other people?
I think it should probably say solely family.
Solely family.
Okay, maybe
Yeah. So
just change.
you're just helping out your family, you don't get one.
Right.
Right. But like, so like you, right, making a bench for your mother wouldn't do it, but you making a bench for a bunch of people, including your mother, would be fine.
Right.
There you go.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe we just need to
Make
tweak
that
that
addition there.
wording a little.
That solely benefits
Yeah.
family.
I mean, I don't want to nitpick, but
That's fine.
That's a good one.
I think
Good point.
I would say go ahead and nitpick because the issue, and I'm not saying nitpick, I'm sorry.
no, I said that, so it's
Let's
fine.
be critical.
We're thinking of improving.
Yes.
Yes,
Not
yes.
nitpicking.
Because I'd much rather we do it here and we resolve those issues or questions that somebody else is going to come up. And I personally would rather look stupid in front of you instead of in front of the whole city.
Oh, no, it's not stupid.
No.
It makes
I'm saying- but I'm saying in general.
Yeah,
in general.
yeah.
No, and I'm not taking it as an insult at all. It is not.
Yeah. Okay.
But because if somebody else is going to come up, I'd rather that we do it at this level,
Yeah.
then later on, and then somebody else say that. But no, yeah.
I really don't see anything else. I think that makes sense, obviously.
Now, what did come up in our discussions was about schoolwork or church. And I know sometimes that does come in kind of like, or kind of obligatory type of or not necessarily organizations, but work. Okay, like for example, I think one of the things, and some of the others that I've looked at say like, they got to do community service. Well, working off your DUI is not going to be something where you're going to get a certificate for. Now, if you get into the organization initially on that and then you come back, it can be very different. but also there's a time factor in how much time you put in, not just, 20 hours and stuff like that.
So because my husband is the baseball commissioner
Right.
at one of the baseball leagues, like there's one of his volunteers that is literally at that park every single morning, especially after the rain, like determining, is the field safe and like literally doing manual labor on the fields, like day in, day
Yes.
out. Is that somebody that would qualify?
Very much, in my opinion,
Yeah,
very
that
much
sounds
so.
great.
But it's not necessarily benefiting city property. It's
Well,
benefiting.
it's the community.
It's a community.
Yeah, any benefit to anything that to do with recreation and parks.
Okay.
That's how I saw it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and those are specifically people that we really want to look at.
Yeah.
I mean, again, if you put him beside of every other person within the organization, and if they exceed it, even the city employee,
Okay.
Okay.
So that, right. Okay.
then like I said, like the woman who helped us at the dog park. I mean, I've got 4 other people who help, but rain or shine, she's out there digging holes and spraying trees, most definitely. And that person would probably be to the top of the list, really.
Okay.
Speaking to the phrase, to that point, the eligible services do not include. I think we could be a little more clear. You were talking about the education and religious part as well. I think religious instruction is kind of open-ended, maybe deliberately, but if we have, like the churches do a lot in our communities, they're volunteering, they're helping out, like especially with the homeless and whatnot. And I would think that people who are volunteering there, because it's with a religious organization, that we would want to include that as well. And I wouldn't want the language here kind of leaves it kind of, maybe it would be excluded.
Well,
Is there a way we can kind of better say that? Because I think what you're saying is more along the lines of like endorsing a religion or promoting religion.
no, I personally, I have no issue with the endorsement or anything else of a religion. What I'm looking at is the general purpose of, say, for example, and this is only my opinion in that, for example, feeding the homeless via the church,
Right.
okay, is somewhat, in some areas, kind of obligatory. Whereas if somebody's feeding the homeless, although I'm not a fan of either, but if somebody were to feed the homeless out of their own truck, out of their own money, out of their own things like that, I would see that as a little bit differently.
Well, you could look to the church as an organization award.
Yes, I understand that.
That's what I mean.
Churches
The
that
church,
or as an organization, and they really are coming together. There's a lot of people volunteering their time to make something happen. And if there's one church that's doing that year in and year out in the community, that I think that makes sense.
I would venture to say then is that if the activity that they are doing benefits the community and not the church.
Right. So like, for example, I'm not involved in any religious organization at all, but I volunteer for Sandpipers.
Right.
And we work with I don't know if it's a Methodist church in North Redondo. And we donate goods and services to them because they provide it to homeless people. So they're not helping people of any religious affiliation. They're just donating the goods and services to people in the community that need them. So in turn, yeah, it's like if we're treating Redondo Sunset as an organization, we might as well treat that church as an organization, right? Like that's what you're saying, right, Jay?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. As far if that work is in the community, it's in recreation and parks, and so it has something to do with our purview, right?
Sure.
We don't have much disaster happening, and so there's not like.
I will tell you, personally, I'm open to that argument. I see it, I understand, I will acknowledge it, and I'm willing to compromise with that. If it's put in that context. However, it's something that this person is at the church and feeds the people in the church, only the people in the church.
If you say you have a public school teacher that volunteers in the community or after school helps the kids
Right.
and whatnot, we would acknowledge clearly that teacher, it's out of their work, right?
Right.
They're a public school teacher, they're helping in the community. If we take that same situation, we have a religious school teacher who's after work volunteering into the community, I would see them as equally eligible.
The key word there is community.
That's what I mean. Like, so I'm just trying to clarify for.
Yeah, I have, in
Because
fact,
if you're going to exclude, or if we're going to exclude, I think I'm just trying to understand what we're trying to exclude. With the church issue, it would be that the volunteering is helping the church. And I'm just trying to.
I'm looking more at the community at large, and I'm willing, because when
No,
we,
but for being excluded, I get what you're saying, for helping the community, that's for the volunteer work that's being done that we clearly would approve, that makes sense. But I'm talking about the exclusion. So in this, here to be eligible, it cannot include, and it just says religious instruction. I'm just saying that those two words.
like, for example,
there's
somebody
gotta be a better way to
does,
say it.
like catechism every Saturday, and it's
Yeah,
their religious,
The reason I liked religious instruction rather than religious associated, or more generally, is, you don't want to exclude people that.
That's right. I don't want it to
Yeah,
be
and
misconstrued.
I don't think it does, because religious instruction means you are trying
Specifically
to teach your specific religion, indoctrinating people. And I see that as not exactly volunteer for that
in the
community.
church, even if you put,
That's to benefit the church, not to benefit the
Right.
community. If there's a better wording to kind of eliminate that,
that was my only thought.
open
is
to
like,
that.
is there-
You could probably take it out and then someone gets an application and just be like, nope, we're not gonna.
I think it would be easy to see, like, if they're working, like you said, if it's benefiting the church, whatever it is they're doing. I agree that I think that would be, that's clearly going to be an ineligible thing.
or
you could say
any other
religious-
organization very similar, for example, a political organization.
Yeah, exactly.
Or if you
Yeah.
said
wanna-
religious instruction that benefits solely the church, the same, sole thing.
Or solely the religious institution.
The institution, right.
Solely, exactly.
So from time to time, I work with different volunteer groups, like student groups, clubs and things like that. Thought maybe those specific clubs who are doing work in Redondo Beach on an ongoing basis, let's say, like Redondo Union, an environmental club, or could be Maricosta. These groups there's a group from Lusinger High, for instance, that it comes out as a club. Would that be something that could be nominated, I guess? Like the.
I would think that you would, in my mind anyway, when one, it would be the purview of the subcommittee to kind of say, is this something we really want? The other side with that is, as a club, is it their mission of the club and the determination not only of the mission, but how much time and effort and what is the impact to the community would determine them compared to, say, another club. So if you had, say, two similar clubs and one was just, planting oranges or whatever, and the other one is really doing a lot of outreach, a lot of hours, and I would say somewhat of a little bit of a sacrifice, that is when you would, you probably would hopefully would acknowledge more than just because they're a club.
Yeah, and that's why we were thinking that if there's three commission members, that it has to be unanimous. So
Yes.
if someone feels that this isn't quite, kosher, doesn't quite fit, then just say no, and that it's out.
And the same thing goes as even if the three decide, hey, look, this is something sounds really good, and then it comes to the full commission, the commission says, oh, wait a minute, here's a reason why it has to be unanimous of the commission as well.
I think for sure in that, I think it's a good idea having the three members do that. And I think those three people, whoever they are is going to hash this out, and it's going to be clear to see. I don't think there's going to be too many people trying to sneak in an organization for trying to get recognition. I think it's going to be.
Well, I would hope that any subcommittee that meets, that if an application is turned down, that there's a specific reason as to why.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
there's a documentation of that, because if it keeps coming forward from the same person, eventually you're going to have to kind of discuss it as to.
Because like in that situation, it could be a team that's from the school, right? That's at a school competition. Well, then is that if it's a school thing, even though the students are volunteers, I guess, but it's the paid teacher, they take the bus to wherever, like there's all those other things that may make it ineligible.
Right.
And I think so.
But also-
we're kind of looking for not the kid who's doing it, like the students that were here that were doing it for credit.
Right.
You're looking for the genuine, they're doing their just community stuff, and whatever that is, whatever
Right.
area of the city that it helps.
I mean, even the one, for
That's a guiding
example,
light.
we just had the dog park where this kid an Eagle Scout project, did everything else for the agility field. That, although is commendable, but probably would not fall into the purview of this because it's for an award that he's getting within his organization. Now, he ended up raising another $600, $700, $800 to be donated to our senior vaccine clinic. That could possibly be, hey, that's a little different. Okay, so you have to be able to weigh the two as to who's the benefactor or the beneficiary of the activity, and for how long, and for, that's been going on. I think sometimes it's more also important as well as just the activity itself. Like a one-time deal where somebody, helped some old lady across the street, as opposed to somebody who does it every day,
Yeah, I have two questions. One is just as we talk about organizations and clubs, and I'm less clear on who, as an organization, would qualify. Just maybe some examples. I know where it's kind of gray, but mostly organizations, they have a mission, to do whatever it is, to, if it deals with plants, to rewild, to, to help for the homeless and so forth. And so that's, they raise money, people are volunteering, but that is just like a church. That's like they're all part of that engine. And so we keep talking about people who are just doing it themselves.
Not necessarily, but
kind of doing it because they're not necessarily a part of an engine that's organizing it for them. Like the South Bay Parkland Conservancy organizes a lot of volunteer opportunities, that's just part of what they're doing. And it is in the community. And so I feel strongest about the individuals. That's what I'm saying. And the organization award is less clear to me.
say, for example, is if somebody within the South Bay Conservancy is actually one or two people or three people that have really excelled, the organization can do that. Now, if, for example, that organization, and we see fit later on as saying is because of what they are doing, even though I would venture to say that their mission is more for the Conservancy, but at the same time, because of what they're doing and because of their mission, they are servicing the community.
Right.
And therefore, they would probably, in my mind, definitely fall in there, because what will generally happen is that the application, they're going to have to explain themselves. And ideally, say, for example, that organization would say, well, we've serviced over 15,000 kids or people, adults, and we've done this, this, and this. And those numbers are what's going to actually kind of push it to an idea as to why it is important that they get acknowledged for that.
But I think that's the perfect example of an organization
Right.
that would be eligible, right?
But the numbers would play it out by what they do, how long they've been in existence, and then the various other organizations, feeder organizations that they reach out to. So, and again, even if you were to get somebody who goes out there and feeds the homeless as well, that does that, okay? But that's also a possibility. But again, we still want to stay within the purview of parks. Unless they start feeding in the parks, then that's something.
But if it is, I hate to keep on going on the point, but if for the organization, if the organization is a religious institution that is doing community work, that's benefiting the community as an organization, like whatever volunteer program they may have, feeding, I'm thinking out loud, feeding feeding the homeless, right? That would be eligible should somebody propose that, right?
Generally, my approach in issues kind of like this is that you put in one organization, you put in the outcome, and then you take it out and put something else in there. And if the outcome is the same,
Right.
But for this person or that person.
Yeah, I mean, because it would be.
I think we can do that with your example, yes.
Yeah, that's
I don't see them excluded
No.
just because they're a religious organization,
No.
as long as it's benefiting the community and it's not indoctrination.
Yeah, and there's nothing that says an organization on
No.
here.
No, provided that the community at large is benefited and it's, I hate to use the term, rather, use the term specific to any one other organization, group, or anything else like that. Okay,
Because like even like the leagues will do a fundraiser clothes or feeding the homeless or stuff like that. That's not, out of the realm of possibilities.
No,
So-
it's not.
So I think this is a great
Especially when
program.
you say they've been doing it for 10 years and, that it's,
Yes.
they've never been recognized, and it's like, you recognize them, whether you continue to recognize on a yearly basis or whatever that, the committee determines that. My second question was about the city employees
Yes.
referrals, and let's take those who are paid by the hour and then go above that. That seems clear to me that those who are off the clock, who are working, those who are salaried, who do a lot of work. And, I know several city employees that are always available, for the community. They're always going, they're still on the clock. They're still salaried. They get paid for maybe not all those things, but it seems like, how do you cut off that personal benefit? Someone's doing it because of their job, because they're on the, they're salaried,
Right.
and they want to, versus someone who is
Again, I think-
worthy of that nomination.
Most definitely, because I know quite a few, or more than a few people in the public works guys who will step up, okay? You can ask them to do something and suddenly the guy says, well, oh, that's okay. No, we're going to do it right, okay? And they do it cheerfully, even though they're being paid. It's I think the attitude of what they're doing, that they do believe that what they're doing is for the community, and they're willing to do that, okay? Yet they still will probably get the other stuff done. Same thing as if, for example, what kind of came to me is one is of this because of the, one is because of, I see the outgoingness of many of the public works guys, but I also seen other employees that could have stepped up and said, like, for example, I was here at City Hall and somebody asked somebody, where can I, do this? And they said, well, go home and go on your computer. Now, if that person would have said, you know what, ma'am, step over here, let me show you how to do this. Taking a 1 or 2 minutes to do something, that is the employee I definitely want one to work in this city, and the two that we should all be exposed to. It takes a minute or two that goes above and beyond to do that while everybody else is, looking at their watch and saying, what time is the break? Which I've also seen.
Chair, if I may, I just wanted to just mention that this, especially because it's a new program, is somewhat malleable and something that if anyone on the commission has a recommendation as we start rolling this out and say, hey, we didn't think of this, or we need to tweak this a little bit, refine this, there's always an opportunity for the commission to revisit this program to make those edits to it. So I just didn't want anyone to think this was the final one and this is what we had to stick to. So I think it's a really good start, and I would recommend that we obviously implement it with with the changes you suggested to the language, and then let's see. There might be an opportunity to refine a little bit more as we see it in action.
If we voted today, or at least, will that put it to a final approval for next month?
No, it would approve tonight.
Okay, because then we would look at maybe an outline or a template of a certificate, and then go from there with that. But again, I think this is, like you said, very, very fluid. A living document that as we go through, that we change and improve or look at and share, for that matter.
I agree. I think it's good. And I make a motion to approve the program.
Second.
You beat me.
Before we vote, I just want to make sure, do you want the motion to include the language edits in the eligibility bullet?
Yes.
I can read those out if you'd like me
Because we can
to.
always change that at a later time with the,
Well,
we'll leave it.
if we throw that in there now, it gets done and we've addressed it, right?
Correct. We can either do it now or we can wait and see how it plays out. It's up to the commission.
If you'd read those back,
Sure.
please.
So in the requirements section, the final bullet says would be updated to read, eligible services do not include the donation of funds, political lobbying, religious instruction that solely benefits the institution, mandated or assigned volunteer service, either court-ordered, school assignment, or other, and services that provide a sole benefit to family members.
That is the revised version.
That's the revised.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay,
The
so,
motion should include that.
So to include those changes in the motion.
okay, so if we can have another motion and then a second, that would be,
So a motion to approve the program and the edited language for the eligibility as discussed.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, seeing that none are opposed, it's been accepted. So great work, guys.
Yeah, really nice.
Chair, if
I'm sorry, one quick question. The actual certificate of itself, can we
we can start working on that.
start working on that?
Sure.
And then this way, if we have to, then the next step would then be is to assign a subcommittee to be able to at least meet and agree on the certificate. And then at which point do we push out for nominations?
Yes, so I was just going to mention, I failed to mention that part of the recommendation is for the commission to affirm the subcommittee members. Currently, we only have 2. The recommendation of the subcommittee is that there is, as much as possible, have at least, have 3 commissioners on the subcommittee so that there can always be a tie-breaking vote if that's necessary. And then also just additional opinions when vetting the nomination. So again, currently we have Commissioners Light and Escontrias. So I just need the commission to make sure that both those commissioners want to remain on the subcommittee. And then if there's a third that the commission would like to elect to that subcommittee, if we can do that this evening, that would be great.
Does that need to take place before the motion, before we've already voted?
No, it can be secondary. It's
Okay.
fine to do it now.
Okay, so it's better to have 3 members on the committee, right? Is there someone who would like to be on the committee? Do you guys have anyone in mind? Anybody, would anyone
Well, I want
like
to
to be?
continue.
I have no issue. And one of the things we did put in there is that the meeting does not necessarily have to be all at one time, any one person, or at any one place. It can be either through Zoom, or if, for example, we get 5 nominations, and then you'll get 5, or you'll get 5, or whoever gets 5, they can review and then put their notes on it. And then when there's a meeting then. So it does not have to be like a consistent meeting each and every time. So that's more of a time factor with that. Because ideally, what more than likely will happen is 3 people will get, say, 5 nominations and agree on all 5 of them because they're very good. Or just, and those are the ones you just push off, and then the discussion would be for any others that maybe somebody doesn't particularly care for. So the time factor in that can be managed, as well as I think we're looking, what are we? July would probably be the first time as if we do it twice a year. So you have time to push it out as well as to review. And with a most definitely cutoff date, probably 30 days prior to the middle of the year. I think if we're going to do it twice a year.
Yeah, July and December or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So you need one of us.
yes, so whoever personally feels like the time
Whoever
factor.
volunteers, we could always take the guy who's not here.
Jeff? Yeah, I fell off a committee as well. My committee kind of fizzled. So the fundraising committee? Yeah, events fundraising. So I could, if no one else is really eager to it, I'm interested in the topic for sure. Mara?
I was just gonna say, I just wanted to note that although I'm really interested in this program and I'm so glad it's, coming to fruition, I do not have the bandwidth to be on the subcommittee. But I just want to let you know that, me not being on it doesn't mean I'm not interested. I'm just personal.
We can do alternates too.
Oh, an alternate?
You could be an alternate.
I'll be an alternate.
There you go. Okay.
So Jacob,
Do you want to be on the committee?
I'm already doing the other one, but I would have no
So am
problem.
I.
Yeah, I'm looking at the rest of them too. Though.
Yeah.
We need to put 3 on every committee is what we need to do next, right?
Well, 3 is recommended. It's not required.
Not required.
Oh, it's not required.
I
Okay.
can get business done with 2. I'd be happy to work with you guys and I think that helps out. So
Okay, so should I make a motion to have the volunteer program subcommittee include Commissioner Escontrias, Commissioner Rodriguez, and Commissioner Light.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have a subcommittee.
Another one.
All right. This is great though. I'm glad you guys put all that work together, and
Yeah, that's really cool.
so I definitely like to help out get spreading the word, and so people know to submit.
Can commission members nominate? Or
There's
no?
nothing in it that does not indicate.
No limitations on who.
Okay.
Okay, just going back to our agenda here, that concludes this item, is that right?
That's correct, yes. We need to, J2 would be our next item.
Okay, J2. Okay, J2, Commission Subcommittee Review and Project Update.
So this is the standing item on the agenda and really an opportunity for any of the active subcommittees to provide an update to the commission on any work that's been done since the last commission meeting. So with that, I'll turn it over to any subcommittees that may have an update.
For the Community Outreach Committee, we did have another meeting with our stakeholders, and we also had a great dialogue and participation from the school district, which was really cool. We had board member Raymer Flynn attended, and also she brought a gentleman, Andrew, I forget his last name, but he is the scheduler for school district properties and recreation properties, fields and stuff. And their information was pretty helpful in the conversations that we had, and we got a lot of answers of the cohesion between the two. Some of the organizations were present. I think there was 3 organizations that were present as well. And then we also had Mike Klein from the city there. There were a lot of things that were discussed, the field issues and finding space and upcoming projects and things like that. But I think the biggest point of that meeting was we were discussing how the school district does its scheduling on properties compared to the way the city does their scheduling and permitting. And the school district has a pretty good software program where they can see all the fields, they can see the times, they can see all the users and everything on an interactive server that the user groups get to register and get a username, and they can go on and see the matrix and see who's using the field or if the field is available to be used. And it seems to be a pretty productive tool that they like to use and whatnot. And so the discussion kind of went to, well, how can we incorporate that to, with the city, and so that we can kind of see everything, because keep in mind that the city and the school district share the properties for mostly athletics leagues. And so then we were talking about getting one central location for all of the information, and could the city and the school district kind of come together? And that was actually something I wanted to, I don't know if I would raise it here or just on a side discussion, as to kind of get the city and the school district to discuss maybe doing that. It's the school district basically did all the groundwork, so I guess it's just a matter of paying for the software or just adding the city's fields and properties.
But does the city have a current software that tracks all the properties that are eligible to be utilized?
So yes, the answer, we do have a software that has that option on it. We're currently in the process of getting that interface updated for all of our facilities, including standing facilities, parks and green spaces and all of that, so that we can then implement it in a similar fashion from what it sounds like the school district does. It provides that scheduling that you can manipulate. Is it daily, weekly, monthly, how you want that reporting out to be. It's all connected to a much larger program that we use for all of our departmental recreational programming. So class registrations are all through the same program. So there's different interfaces to it. As far as incorporating that with the program that the school district uses, I don't know if that's quite possible. As I said, because ours is tied to so much more than just facility rentals and facility uses. And I would venture to guess the school districts might also be. And so I don't.
That's where so the issues were that the users are using the leagues are on using school district and city property. And so constantly going in different directions for where they are. And so, yeah, that was one of the fears was exactly that, is that there's going to be, they have a good system, we have a good system, but our system doesn't talk to your system. And
well, it's worth talking to them just to see what system they have.
They did give us the name. Do you remember the name of that? It was.
No, it's like
I do have it.
I think I sent you a snapshot of it when I looked it up.
Yeah, Facilitron.
Facilitron.
It was in the update. I sent you the update.
Yes, I remember that title. Yeah, so I don't know how compatible the two programs are. I would venture to guess that they cannot be essentially combined into one.
But I think the question begs itself is that does the community, or rather, with your program that the city has, can the community go online, look at what is available, and to be able to get a permit or a request for that facility at a certain time?
That is the goal. So as I stated, we're in the process right now of really implementing that program. It's a very long process, only in the fact that every facility and every usage is so unique in different ways, whether it's the fees or the amenities or whatever it may be. And so it takes time to set the system up so that it can process each location individually. And so our staff is having to do this incrementally. And so right now the focus is on a separate location or separate site. And so we are in the process of implementing the program department-wide, which includes facilities and field spaces. So the ultimate goal is that we would be able to have everything online, and anyone at any moment can go online and see what's available, submit a request, or even do a permit, depending on the site. But we just aren't quite there yet, but we are working towards that. That is a main focus of our team's efforts currently.
And there was the other issue with the parks. They wanted to also push for the city and the school district to begin discussing negotiations to use the school district playgrounds, not all of them, but select campuses for over the weekends. So that was also a big issue that was discussed. And I think that kind of sums up if I'm missing.
My takeaway was a little different than that.
Yeah.
I found it very interesting is that some of the information that I had received before of the interaction between the school district and some of these organizations was pretty harsh. But when they showed up and the school district was able to explain their position, and it kind of gave light that the issue was not as bad as it was purported to be.
Right.
But who is talking about the issue? Is it the leagues?
The leagues, other people in general, things like
Because
that.
it means more to them than it does.
Of course, and I get that,
Also,
but
I think the communication,
that's the biggest thing.
It was, and I think that's what my client had alluded to, is that the benefit of the whole getting together is to dialogue.
Right.
The free flow of just talking and meeting with the people, but yeah, for sure, I think the school district is a little more focused on school district stuff, and they don't communicate maybe. I don't know, I'm just speculating.
And I think when kind of asked, a few of the people, or some of the people that were there said, well, no, we have a really good relationship with this individual from the school. He listens to us, he talks to us. There was a question concerning locks that were being changed. And I directly asked him, well, did you change the locks? Yes, we did. Did you tell them? Yes, we did. And then it was like, oh, okay. So the biggest thing I think was the communication was a lot clearer. And I think that kind of facilitated a little more. There was an issue I know with some people as to why somebody from the city staff was not there to kind of explain the position. I think they would have opened up a lot more doors as to everybody talking to each other
As opposed to Mike Klein.
as opposed to my client.
They didn't count him as city staff?
No,
I think,
it was
they were asking
more
for
from the
a
recreation
Parks and
side.
Rec person.
So if I can just briefly speak to that, there was a scheduling issue on our side with our team. And so we've already communicated with Mike especially, and we will make sure that we have someone from our department to represent
I think
those meetings.
it was brought up, whatever, reason. But again, I think the biggest thing here that we were seeing, and I was actually very impressed with, that the dialogue is really good. I mean, it's a hell of a lot better than what I anticipated. And we're seeing that people are talking to each other more. They're bringing out the fact of how they use a certain program, and if the city does not, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the death of anything. It just means that they're talking, and that's I think is the important part, is that because the understanding of what's going on, because one of the leagues asked about doing some work, and then Mike Klein turned around and said, well, you have $50,000.
Yeah,
He's like, suddenly he's like,
really?
where did this come from?
and it was already there.
It was already there.
So you guys get to do some work that,
Yes,
So, and I think they were talking at Alta Vista Park too, as well.
right. It was Alta Vista. It was a ball field, and Mike was there saying, I'll walk through with you in the next couple of days, and we'll go through and see what you need. And then suddenly it was like, wow.
yeah, that's wonderful.
And I think the other part of, well, I'll say two things. The first is, this is the second meeting, and it's been pretty beneficial, I think, to everybody, which I think is good. And it's cool to see, but the big thing with the communication, you're right, with the school district, from what we heard and what we saw.
Right.
But it was also the turnover. So you got like new people in there that didn't know, and then and the guy was right. He's like, I sent it out. And he can't blame him because
No, you can't.
they changed hands and they got different people in there and whatnot. And so it's a lot for all of them, but it's all communication. And so to just have, you're not going to have every organization have people at every meeting, but when they want to talk about something, they'll be at that meeting because that's where they're going to be able to talk about their stuff. And so I think it's worth pursuing. And I think, the more we get involved, I think we'll get more benefits from it down the road.
I think this definitely exemplifies the idea of community engagement as well as communication. And I think as a committee, I think our job was mostly more as a mediator. Because there are things that it's not going to get fixed. Everybody's not going to be happy with everything.
And we're not going to be able to pull the trigger and say, go do this and that. And that's where Mike is. That's, the city having them there. And so I think that's that was kind of like the whole point, I think, what we were kind of set out for. So there were other issues. There was, if I could, or you have it, and you have everybody's email, could you just forward that out, the notes? I meant to ask you that before.
Yeah, I can forward that over to the commission.
To bring them up to speed, just so.
I think what also came out of this as well was not only the conversations between these organizations and the city or the school, but there was conversations among themselves. Like, for example, we come to find out that there's a rugby club, which has quite a few people that was interested in using rugby. And they started talking more so with the AYSO, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And they're sharing areas.
But giving them tips on where to look.
How to approach it. And so they're talking among themselves of being able to provide services that we normally would not know about. Because again, this rugby club is talking about 200 members, something like that?
I think it was a couple, it was up to, I forget what, it started out pretty small and it's got a
They're
lot.
very small, but I think there's over 200 people in the organization right now.
Is this youth rugby?
Youth rugby.
And so it's like, wow, okay.
We have space
So,
for them?
I'm sorry?
I said, do we even have space? Like,
I
we need
believe
more
so.
fields.
I mean,
Having experience with the leagues and knowing how finite the space is
Yeah.
when you're down the Easter Fields, the first thing you hear, as a league representative is like, oh, no, get this guy out of here. Because we're all already fighting over the scraps of the fields and whatnot. But that wasn't the reaction. They were more like, trying to figure out like, hey, you're in this, get in line with the rest of us. And
I would be very accommodating. And I thought it was was very impressive that they were saying, we'll share with you.
Yeah.
Like we even recommended that the rugby even try parts of Dominguez Park that are flat, that are not necessarily like on the other side of the ball fields, way in the back, and because they says all we need is maybe 50 yards and that's about it. And we'll practice, but then because we'll go out and do something elsewhere if we need to. And I think it's important that we, accommodate as many people as we can for all the different services that are out there.
One of the real points I think for all of us, especially on this commission, to understand is that we are not only park deficit city, but we're even multiply that, the magnitude of recreational field use for youth leagues. The deficit is even 10 times that. And so it's a really finite amount. And so to get people looking, so imagine you're running or you're working in a league and you're got your sport, whatever, and you drive by a field and you see a field empty at a time where your guys could have used it. And so that's what's happening right now is the inefficiencies in the system. That was with the conversation of getting the two to talk, because there could be a time when the rugby probably could have used the field, but nobody was using the field, but nobody knew that that field wasn't going to be used because, there's a little bit of information here at the school district, some at the city.
Right.
You can we're going to have to be, the city and the school district is going to have to be more efficient going forward in the park use. It just has to. And so however that gets done, hopefully it does get done because with more groups and more kids and we got more population probably going up in Redondo, it's just going to get worse and worse. And so
we were also stressing the idea of a plan B, of each organization going to a plan B. For example, I know one of the organizations talking about how they almost got aced out of their location because of having the reseeding that had to be done by the city. And that was like within a time frame in which the only time they could get it done. So rather than the whole thing shut down, it was, okay, where can we go? Where can we find you, at least for those 2 or 3 weeks that you need, whether it's school property or an empty field somewhere that's not being used so that it doesn't stop. I think the momentum cannot stop for these kids in these organizations. So we always want to look for plan B and even to a certain degree, plan C, so that it continues.
That's why so those relationships with the school district are so important because they have the space,
They have probably more, I would think, I don't know if my count is correct, but I think there's more youth recreation usage on school district property than city property. I think there's more fields.
That makes sense. They have a lot more land.
And so they're, and they're locked up sometimes and it's hard for people to get on them even when you do have the time or the scheduled time. So and it's, it's not the school district's fault, it's just because they're a school district, but it's a blend that needs to, be a little bit more efficient, I think is service everybody.
I just felt more comfortable with this last meeting and in seeing how the individual from the school district was open, was talking, and he explained, and they acknowledged that that's what was going on, as opposed to maybe sometimes the last conversation we had or from the school district of, well, this is why it can't work. I mean, he was basically looking at us as saying, let me see and try and help you make it work. Same thing with the school board member that was there as well, basically saying, I'm here to oversee this as well. So that was, I think, was really, really good that we were able to talk to somebody who knew what they were talking about and had their hand on the pulse of everything that was going on within the district.
Yeah.
Any other updates for the committee? Right, or how about
I could talk about it long.
We could talk to,
how about other committees?
Oh,
we met.
Did we meet once or twice after?
I think it's only been once since the last meeting.
Oh, okay. And about Dominguez Park, and it was really fun.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Yeah, we talked about the resurfacing, and so we talked with, what was his first name? Nate, that's
Yes.
right. Yeah, so we talked with him and we went over all the color options and the different blends. So I think that we talked a little bit about the budget before, and he was telling us that like the black and I think the tan are more reasonably priced, but it turns out that they did a quote or a estimate, and it's way below budget anyway. So we had a little bit of freedom there to like really look at design versus cost. And so we picked, me, Kate, and Jacob were in the meeting. And we, again, went for a more natural palette and
A blend.
Yeah, a blend of the black and some of the tan to like mute the colors, and gave some feedback on, you know, the design. And so I think he's going to come back with something.
Yes, so Nate took the input of the subcommittee and is going to give us, I believe, 2 designs to review. Should be coming in actually any minute. And so then I'll share those with the subcommittee, and then we'll hopefully have an opportunity to select one of those 2 final designs. And this is just for the playground surfacing. The playground itself it's already been vetted by the commission, but the subcommittee is just focused right now on the surfacing.
So this is just a general question. I know there was some discussion previously, we were talking about why weren't they doing the servicing, and then it turns out that they're gonna, you know, give us an estimate. But do you guys still have to go to 2 other vendors to get quotes, or are you able to use them since it came under budget?
Correct, yeah. We're going to utilize game time just for efficiency and a lot of other reasons. So it's, yeah,
Great.
Nate will be part of the project. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a really fun educational project.
It's been super fun.
I know, and it's been fascinating. I didn't know how playgrounds, were put together quite like this. I remember selecting design, but not actually getting into the nitty gritty of it. And it's pretty interesting. So,
Yeah. Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, I do. My concern goes back is again to the cost and in the budgeting. I know that it was said that there is somehow some fund so that if something breaks down, that somehow they can reach into it in order to fix and to look at items that need to be repaired. The information I received is that the people I spoke to said they were kind of surprised that there was some fund somewhere, that one person was not aware of it at all, and the other person says, well, yes, there is, but it is minimal. So that sometimes we have to take a look at that. If we have $45,000, item, that if it breaks, are we going to deplete that fund, or there's not going to be any money in that fund whatsoever because of other playground equipment that's out there?
I think there's warranties on
But
the items.
Well, no, I would, we had the discussion before about the warranty, and he kind of said, yeah, but the warranty is only in case there is a defect or something that is done that they can manage. But say, for example, what if we get somebody who graffitis the whole place up or tears some things like that?
That's just the cost of doing business as a city.
I get that, but I'm saying is that if there's a possibility of withholding or holding back a small percentage of the budget for maintenance of it.
Well, I don't really know if that's up to us to reallocate where money goes.
Well, it's not, I don't think it's reallocation, it's still within the budget.
Well, that money would have
it
to be
seems
held
like-
someplace in a maintenance account.
Yeah, it seems like ongoing maintenance would be public works, and that would be separate funding from just this actual project. Like,
I think we're actually, even though we spent a little bit more on that one item that we had discussed, we're actually coming in below budget in other areas. So I think we're just right where we need to be, right?
I think so. And just based on what Nate described to us about the budget for the surfacing, I still think we're going to be below our budget for that. So don't quote me on it because we haven't seen the final design and the final estimate for the surfacing, but I think all said and done, I do think there will be some money left over in the project as a whole. Where that money is allocated is certainly topic of a future discussion at the city council level, but at least we know that for the project itself, it looks to be fully funded, which is half the battle certainly when it comes to projects. So.
Because it's my understanding, especially with the city, in some of these projects, they are not a use it or lose it type of situation. That if you withhold a portion of it, it is still allocated to that funding. And that's what my understanding is from from what I understand. I'll put it that.
But is that how it's divided, that each park has an individual fix-it fund for their playground, or is it?
No.
It seems like it would be the general, so that's what we're saying, is
From what
put it back
understanding is
to
that
the
there's
general.
supposedly there's a general funding for all.
For ongoing maintenance, and, because a lot of the equipment that we were shown, it does have the warranty, but it's timed for 3 to 5 or however many years. And then it may or may not break down, and at that point, things have to be replaced, or the surfacing, if there's, that has to go and be repaired, so.
Well, my understanding is, like, for example, the resurfacing has to be done every 2 years of being resealed. Okay. So if in 2 years we have to reseal, which is fine, but if we say we're to hold back some dollars from that, and then we can able to reseal it using the same funding from before, otherwise, if they try to reseal it from the fund that is out there for maintenance, that if there's even any money in there as well. And then what ends up happening is the sealing, it's not getting sealed, and therefore it'll deteriorate more and cost us more in the long run.
I mean, I don't think there's any guarantee that if we hold money back, it's going to go back to take care of this park. And so, I mean, say we hold back, we're like, no, let's get rid of that because we want to put money into this fund that we don't even know if that money would be used towards maintaining this park. And like, then we sell ourselves short. Like, we don't have a lot of nice things here. We really don't. The kids need another park.
I agree with that.
And I feel so strongly about this.
But I also like that they're going to go into a park that they're able to keep it nice.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I just I don't know if this, at this point, like how
maybe we
can
have
a call over this.
If we fall below budget, okay, will the money still be there in a year and a half that to be utilized later on for any type of maintenance, upkeep, or anything else specifically to that?
You know what I would kind of like to know? I would like to know if some of this money could go towards planning, like updated park equipment for like Alta Vista, which is going to need to be replaced sooner than later.
That would be more the idea, because I think that would not be an option, because this money is allocated for Dominguez only. So I think the idea of
And a lot of Alta Vista is school district property.
right.
No, the small park by the community center.
That one is city.
The Julia side.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. So
I think the idea of withholding money from the project itself like that is more feasible for it to go back to that as opposed to another project as well.
I'm not sure if I think it's the problem, if the fund goes low for the general maintenance of all the parks and all the park equipment, then the city needs to address that fund. Because it could be Veterans Park, it could be Anderson Park, and that takes a priority over any other park. But if we're running low on resurfacing, then it's not so much I think the individual project funds, but maybe what we're talking about here is if there is something left over, should the commission be able to say what to do with it or how to recommend where it goes?
So I would have to look at the city's policies on that. I'm not familiar with where that money, typically if money is left over on a project that's not CIP related, typically that just goes back to general fund. Whether that's true for CIP projects, I don't know. They may have a separate policy for that. So I would have to look into that. And then whether we can pre-allocate whatever is left over, again, I would have to look. I've never seen it happen that way, but that doesn't mean that it's not possible. So I would just have to look in and see what the Redondo financial policies are.
My
We
understanding
could have a ribbon cutting and pizza for everyone.
I mean, there are many cities and even in governmental agencies that if you don't use every penny, that money is gone, and then suddenly now the budget is lower the next year after that. My understanding in this city that for most of these projects, it is not the same way. It could still sit there for years.
Is that the best use of funds,
They could
though,
reassign it for
also?
something else.
Yeah, is that the best
There's
use
no
of funds?
reason why they
Just
can't
sit
take
there?
that money. So if there's $50,000 left over,
Well,
and
you can't, because what ends up happening is that when suddenly somebody has another project and they're going to allocate it, it has to go through not necessarily a bidding process, but a council process of allocation of those funds, because you have to account for them.
yeah, but if it's unused funds, right?
It'll just go back to the general fund.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying they could probably I'm a little suspect on the way the budgetary systems of cities happens.
They can be creative.
So I would just imagine if we have $50,000 left over, that money can be reallocated to whatever, we may say, do it for this. I just don't know if that'll ever.
I venture to say is we probably could not, because it's something that requires the council to decide of allocation of funds. It would, you have to go back to the general fund, and they would have to go through a whole new process all over to allocate it for that project.
Yeah.
I do just want to make sure the commission doesn't get too deep into a conversation that's not agendized. My recommendation is I will certainly follow up. I have a note to figure out what the policies and procedures are in that type of a case. We're kind of in the middle of the project, but we still have time to where the project still has to be bid out fully. It has to be the construction and installation, all of that. So we could potentially have future discussions on that if it's appropriate. So if I may, I'd recommend that just allow me to get some information on that, and then we can figure out how best to proceed with that type of discussion in the future.
Yeah, I think the committee is well placed as well to, if there's a few thousand extra dollars, then we'd probably suggest more equipment, a few more extras that could go in there and just match that. But do we have any other reports from committees? Commissioner Light, maybe you can update everybody on the park bench.
Oh, sure.
Park benches.
Yeah. We did go yesterday and see the plaques. They're really quite cool. They're heavy, apparently.
Very nice.
Brass that people like to steal, so he wants to find flat rocks to put it. So there's these two benches for the first two benches in Wilderness Park for my mom and Bill Pettit, the Conservancy, and one of them will be overlooking one of the lower lake, right off the trail.
The upper pond, right?
There's the entrance one.
Oh, right, kind of by the amphitheater.
Yeah. And they're really, I think, going to be very cool. They're going to have a cement slab, and then I guess they're made out of cement but look natural. And the plaques will be on a rock next to it, and I'm real excited about that. They're shooting to get it done by April, ideally in April 1, as opposed to later, but no later than Earth Day, April 22nd. And there'll be some ceremonies for the two benches and maybe some other things for Earth Day and the like. So it's cool. Yeah, thanks for your support for it, everybody.
Yeah, and also to Barbara Epstein, who's really been pushing this along, and Mike Klein as well.
Yeah.
He's put a lot of his own time to design everything and respond with everybody. So that's exciting. Any other updates from community? I think that's it, right?
Okay, never mind.
So moving on to J3, Director's Report.
So I have a few items to update the commission on. The first one is, if you'll remember the last meeting, there was a referral to staff to do some research on the softball or the dugout on the softball field, and whether there had been discussion or a project plan to do some sort of an overhang or roof on that dugout. I did reach out to our Public Works team, and they did confirm that they do remember past conversations that seemed to be that the league was going to fund and install something like that, but no formal discussions were ever had. And so as a result of that, and then certainly as the nonprofit group has been meeting with all of the nonprofits in the area, I did ask that subcommittee, considering all the input they've received, give staff a priority list of projects that we can then use to develop projects to recommend to the city council for funding for next year. So this could be an example of one that maybe needs to be at the top of the list because there's a safety concern or health concern, I should say. But we thought it was very fitting for the subcommittee to serve in that capacity because you are that direct connection with most of the groups. And so we appreciate you guys putting that together. But as of right now, going back to the initial item, there is no plans to install something over the softball dugouts. And then the second item is I just wanted to publicly say that we are in full efforts now to begin hiring for our summer activities. We have been consistently hiring for our after-school program throughout the year. We've also been able to add more children to the program throughout the year. So really happy with that progress, but certainly still room for some more employees. So if you know anyone who's interested, please send them our way. But we are also hiring for the Alta Vista Tennis and Community Center, for Wilderness Park, specifically for Friday and Saturday overnight shifts. We have some openings at our senior centers. Specifically for summer programs, we have multiple summer camps that our staff and employees facilitate, and so we have a lot of openings for that. And then for Seaside Lagoon, we're looking for cashiers, maintenance staff, and of course our lifeguards. So if you know anyone, please send them, direct them to the city website and complete the city application, or to staff, and we can certainly help guide them through that process. And that concludes all of the director's reports for this evening. Yes.
I have a question for the tennis center jobs. What's the age requirement for something like that? What's the lowest age requirement?
I'm going to refer to our supervisor on that, just so I don't misspeak.
So typically, we do take high school students if they're going to be shadowing someone that's over the age of 18. We normally have them come in with like doing maintenance tasks, room setup. They will help in the office, but only if we have a staff member that's over the age of 18.
Okay. And that's for all the other facilities as well that we're looking, or most of them?
So over the age of 16, if they are working with, again, like a group of kids, we have an adult with them as well, so that we won't leave the under 18 solo.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on to item K, member items and referrals to staff.
I have one that's kind of related to what you were just talking about. I had a couple parents approach me with questions which sound like complaints, but essentially it really is a question. So a lot of the summer camps that run through other cities like Hermosa and Manhattan publish their list of offerings, like sometimes even like late February. And so the question was, Redondo offers such great summer camps. Why so late in comparison? So, and you were just talking about staffing. So I'm thinking the answer probably has something to do with that. But on the other hand, possibly not, because I can't imagine that the other cities have better staffing. So is there a reason why? I guess like there's two ways of doing it. You could publish the camp offering, and then if you don't get staffing for it, you could then cancel it. But yeah, just that was the question.
So we do recognize that the registration is later, and especially for summer camps, it's kind of a special type of a registration system, if you will, only because it is so unique and something that parents typically like to plan out as early as possible. And so that's why a lot of the neighboring cities do registration for that fairly early, really even in the winter, as you stated. And so we are working to with our team very closely to get as aligned with those schedules as much as possible. So we have done a survey of the neighboring cities to see when summer registration is, and actually with all of our seasons, we really want to be aligned. We don't want the parents to feel that they have to register somewhere else in anticipation of when our registration becomes available, just so they know they have a spot somewhere. So we are working hard to be aligned with that. It may take a few seasons for us to get to that, but it is something we're aware of and working towards.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's great. I said, I don't know. So now I know. So thanks.
Yes.
I have a question for staff. So I previously mentioned Alta Vista Park equipment, and I was just wondering, is there a projection for when equipment for a park like that might be due to be replaced? I know their surfacing is in bad shape, and they have made some repairs here and there to the equipment, but and I'm talking about that park because I see it the most, because we're there the most out of like the other parks. So I was just, wondering, because Dominguez Park is obviously in bad shape, and it kind of felt like the process could have started earlier. I guess COVID factored into that, but I wouldn't want to see the same thing happen to another park equipment.
I don't have a simple answer for that. I don't know that the city has a comprehensive schedule that identifies which locations are due for that replacement on a rotating calendar. I do know that our public works team, so we've implemented a monthly check-in meeting with our public works team where we talk about really the full gamut. If they notice that a park or playground has some equipment that needs to be fixed and we need to somehow assist in that, it's those types of conversations. And so that's been really helpful because it's kind of a combination of the input we've received from the community, but then also they're the boots on the ground. Their teams are in the parks more than we are, frankly. And so it's helpful for them to then come to us and say, we were at Anderson Park, for example, and that surfacing is in dire need of, we think that one needs the most shape, so let's focus our efforts there. So it is a very collaborative discussion, but as far as there being a kind of a formal or pre-discussed calendar, there may be one, but I'm not familiar with there being one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I guess the question is when you guys look at that equipment, are you happy with how it's aging?
Specific to Alta Vista?
Well, yeah, I guess so.
I don't know. I haven't myself gone out and inspected it specifically, so I wouldn't feel comfortable answering that. But it's something that I'll add to my list so that when we do meet monthly with our teams, I can ask them to go take a closer look at it and let us know if they think we should be allocating some more time and efforts there.
Yeah, I think it's functioning fine. There's been a few repairs. They do suffer from that one panel that so many other parks have, that leaves have fallen in it and they're just there forever. Mm-hmm. And so I think that kind of shows its age because it has so many dead leaves in that one panel. And, the surfacing also probably went in around the same time the equipment did, and that's like obviously in not great shape. So I'm not saying replace it if it's still functioning, but I'm just, on the heels of the Dominguez Park. Mm-hmm. And it would just be nice if we got in front of equipment replacement instead of behind.
Mm-hmm. Just to chime in, sorry. I may be completely losing my mind, but I feel like during COVID, we had a Zoom meeting, and I don't know if you were on the commission yet, where we actually met with Mike Klein. And he went through public works sort of relationship with the parks and parkettes and sort of how the various levels or grades that they assign each park and parkette. Does anyone else remember that? Jake, do you remember that?
There was a meeting, I recall, that there was a listing of all the parks and the facilities and like a rating that they was given to each one.
Yes.
Unfortunately, what occurred was that the person who did the actual hands-on was not qualified to do it.
Oh, the grading? That did the grading?
Wasn't it Alberto?
No, Alberto indicated that he was the one responsible for it. But my understanding is John LaRock actually did it.
Oh.
So
it might be outdated. Is that what we're saying? That the rating of the parks, and I remember he gave a report.
Yes, he did,
and he presented to us. Yeah, the ratings.
I'm just saying there are ratings,
Yes.
like there may not be a calendar of when something quote unquote expires, but there definitely is a rubric that they work from, like, okay, this is like a safety hazard and this
Right.
needs to be.
As they go through it, they'll check it off, and if it falls
Yeah.
below a certain line, then they knew that has to come up, actually goes to the top of the listing as far as repair.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking, it's been a while, like, I mean,
2 years, I
we
think.
could certainly get Mike Klein to come talk to us again as a commission and go through that same process if we're interested in looking at the age of certain parks, or we could even, I'm sure we could choose maybe, these are the ones that we're concerned about or that haven't been looked at in a while, and have some questions answered about each one. I mean,
It would be interesting to see the second report and how it compared to the.
Well, my understanding is that every facility, every playground piece of equipment is on a scheduled examination or a review, almost sometimes monthly. Some are required, just like when we talked about the warranty. Their recommendation for Dominguez Park is every day. Okay.
I think we may have misinterpreted what he said there.
Okay, but either way, but I discussed it with somebody from Parks, and they indicate there is a listing. They're required to check off each park, depending on the facility, depending on the type of equipment, that they do rate it. And then I think at the end, at each year, they do a big giant one with everything to determine how much funding they're going to need, what needs to be replaced, and what can go into a bigger program if they necessary.
What I think a good path forward on this is I certainly made note of it. I would like to see that report. I've never seen it. So I'll reach out to Mike and see if he can share that with me, and then see if there's any plans to update it, or maybe it has been. And then I'll also talk with him about how best to present that to the commission if it was done previously. So I'll look into that report and seeing how best we can share that with the commission.
I'm not the only one that remembers it, which is good. So, if it has been a couple of years, then maybe we're due for a refresher on that. So, it's always interesting, actually.
All right, well, if there are no more other comments.
I think
One more comment?
Commissioner
I was
McCauley.
just gonna make a comment. I forgot what it was. I was thinking, yeah, I forgot.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. I just had a question about something, but it wasn't a staff thing. So,
Okay.
a referral.
Last chance. Do we have a motion to adjourn then?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll see everybody back on April 12th, 2023, 7 p.m.
Nice
Great.
job.
Yeah. When
Everybody
is
ready for
daylight savings?
daylight